There's historical value, but we don't refer to stuff that short term would be very. I mean, I have that. But it's like, it's a- Yep, you're right. That's it. Yep, I just asked the same question. It's because of the way it's.
That's a lot better than the offers that we married for a year. You stayed with it? You stayed with it?
If you do the sushi restaurant, then it's everything that's on your desktop, including whatever one is working on. If you want it to just be limited to like the fun.
I mean, if you got.
You know, pop-ups and that stuff. It only takes 1 or 2 meetings for that to happen. Don't do that again.
You really notice it when you come to.
Do you? Yeah.
Oh, you found one?
Well, I hope it's working. This is Rena, so when you're done, just give it back. Okay. Rena. Rena's in red. She'll be presenting today, but she said she's gonna leave before it's over, so just give it to me. Yeah.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn from executive
So
session?
moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. All right. Try and find everything that I'm supposed to have. All right. Now we need the roll call.
Mr. Bracken?
Here.
Ms. French?
Here.
Mr. Prethridge?
Here.
Ms. Ragu?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mayor Snavely?
Here. We will now do a pledge of allegiance. If you'd like to join us, you're welcome. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any adjustments needed? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We'll move first in public participation to appointments to boards and commissions. Mike?
All right, I would like to move that we appoint Jonathan Creech to the vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second. There's been moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. All right, next we have a report from Carol Michael on ShareFest. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to report this year's results for ShareFest. It was held on Thursday, May 15th through Tuesday, May 20th. This is our 20th year for ShareFest. And we picked up materials from all residence halls and campus and accepted drop-offs from Chestnut Fields parking lot from off-campus students and community members. This year, we diverted 95 tons of food, clothing, furniture, and household goods and e-waste from the landfill and got them on to people who could use them and enjoy them. This is more than 20 tons more than last year. 1/3 of our donations this year, in fact, came from townspeople. And at a recent meeting, one church member spoke up and he said, "Thank goodness for ShareFest. Our church finally got to clean out its storage area." Our beneficiary groups once again included Goodwill of Greater Cincinnati, who received 9 trailers full of goods weighing over 70 tons. They help make this event possible. They provide the muscle, and they, of course, pass things on to many people, consumers, and they help the handicapped as well. TOPS received 3,954 pounds of food for their clients in addition to 3,925 pounds of materials, which were passed along to multiple families. This is their highest receipt ever. In 2024, they had a total of 1.64 tons. So they had much more this year. Open Hands Pantry in Hamilton received 12 tons of food and materials to support their operation, and they helped the homeless, which I think is significant. We helped many others too. Parkview Arms Resident Council received 3,000 pounds of items. Thread Up Oxford, the International Student Scholars. We continued our partnership with New Life Furniture Bank in Cincinnati. And Cohen Recycling helped us, and Butler County Success Program helped community school liaisons serving families to help them get academic success. We're proud that we nearly doubled the number of volunteers from the community who helped make ShareFest possible, including my fellow ShareFest board members, Sam Perry, Secretary, Karen Baker, Treasurer, Rob Avowitz, Chair of Planning Committee. Rob does a fantastic job of planning. Chantel Ragu, Shauna Rosenberg, and Olivia Heron, Director of Sustainability at Miami University. We had 6 important site coordinators. I won't go through all their names, but you have them listed in front of you. We have had 5 important pickup volunteers that were important, and Scott Campbell updated our website. Volunteer groups. TOPS did an amazing job recruiting volunteers this year. They had over 35 volunteers, including those listed and others too. We also had about 26 volunteers from Open Hands Food Pantry. Goodwill of Greater Cincinnati provided 10 paid staff under the very capable supervision of Josh Hamblin. I'm going to send a letter of commendation about his work. He was great. With the help of 35 Miami University student volunteers, we hung 1,800 door tags. With the cooperation of Miami University, 2 emails were sent to 7,000 off-campus Miami University students. We posted about ShareFest on several Facebook pages. The City of Oxford provided information in its move-out guide to the city on its website. We posted several times the Miami Students Life Instagram, and we sent an email to most landlords in Oxford. Expenses continue to be very modest, thanks to gifts in kind from Butler County Solid Waste District, the City of Oxford, who provided dumpsters, and the use of the Chestnut Fields parking lot, and ThredUp Oxford also provided a large van. Other expenses amounted to under $500 were covered by past donations from individuals and churches in the City of Oxford. After the event, we always have a debrief with partners to see what we can do better next year. So we continue to have more foam mattress toppers than students need. And I contacted Camp America in Preble County, and happily they came and accepted a whole bunch of them. So next year I'm going to contact some other camps to see if they would like some as well. We continue to receive many more mattresses and appear in good condition, but can't find an agency interested and willing to accept them. Next year, we're going to explore working with a local agency who might give a mattress giveaway and then have a nice place to temporarily store them in a clean, dry place, maybe the new bus terminal on Chestnut. Next year, we might invest in yard signs or an E-frame sign to post outside of Miami's commencement venues to continue to spread the word among Miami graduates and their parents. And unfortunately, we still had students in residence halls putting things in dumpsters that shouldn't have gone there. So next year, I think we're going to post volunteers at each of those throughout the event to divert those so we get more things to pass on to people. I thank each and every person and organization that helped make ShareFest a success this year. And it takes many volunteers to make this event work. And we continue to appreciate the partnership with the City of Oxford and welcome your continued support and guidance in this important project. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. We really appreciate all the work of you and all of your volunteers. Does anyone have questions for Carol? Okay. Thank you, Carol. We
You're most
really
welcome.
appreciate it, and thank you for giving us the written report.
My pleasure.
Okay, Rena.
Hi, everyone. Okay, thank you. Sorry, still getting used to ClickShare. Hi, everyone. I'm here to present our 2023 greenhouse gas inventory. So I'm going to walk us through our 2023 emissions, and at the end, I'll provide a comparison to our goals and our baseline since 2019. So you'll see here we are on our red brick road to zero. I'm just really excited about this branding. I think it's quite cute. So, all right. So as a reminder, our goals are a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions over our 2019 baseline, ending with community-wide net neutrality in 2045. With the little asterisk that these emission reductions target exclude Miami University emissions where possible. We can't always parcel them out, but just a review of our city's goals. This year, we worked with Power a Clean Future Ohio to provide our 2023 greenhouse gas inventory. This was free technical assistance provided to the city through their program, and it utilizes the US EPA's greenhouse gas tool. This is important because this is a little bit of a different tool than we've used in the past. So when we go to compare inventories in the future, it's not quite apples to apples. It's pretty close, but not exact. And then lastly, we're going to talk about our net emissions, or we're going to talk about our gross emissions, not really our net emissions, because the Global Covenant of Mayors requires us to report our gross emissions. So with that, we're going to talk a lot about metric tons of carbon dioxide. Just to give you an idea of what that means, it's about 113 gallons of gasoline consumed. And if you're ever curious about these greenhouse gas equivalencies, the EPA has a really great calculator, which this is a screenshot from. All right, getting into the meat of it. For our 2023 community-wide emissions, you can see here Miami is a large portion of our emissions. When we include Miami in our emissions, our commercial sector is our number one. When we exclude Miami in our emissions, our residential sector is our primary sector. Moving forward, I'm going to refer to the inventory without Miami because those are the ones we're using against our goals and baselines. So for the technical folks, here's a community-wide emissions breakdown by source. But for everybody else, myself included, here's a little bit more intuitive one. So the primary sources of our emissions are electricity, natural gas, and heating oils. It is fuel for our homes and our commercial industry. And then the next largest is transportation. From there, we have a little bit of emissions from our waste to Rumpke, from our closed landfill, from grid loss, just like we lose a little bit of energy to get our electricity, to get our natural gas. And then you'll also see water and wastewater called out in here. This is just by the byproducts of our water and wastewater treatment. That does not include the electricity required to treat our water and wastewater. That's included in the electricity sector. So just a little asterisk there. So when we look into our residential emissions by source, this is just to give you a little snapshot of where they're coming, mostly from mobile combustion or transportation, with electricity being the next one. And I wanted to call out that our electric aggregation program reduced our residential electricity emissions by 68% and saved the average participant over $300 in 2023. This is a fantastic program. We got the luck of the draw, locked in a really cheap rate while the market skyrocketed. So this was a great year for savings and for emissions reduction. Moving on to the commercial sector, it changes a bit. Our main source here is electricity, but you can see that transportation is there too. You'll see less of a reduction from our aggregation program. That's just because only small commercial accounts are eligible under our electric aggregation program. Large commercial users can have a purchase of power agreement for clean energy. We just don't get that information. So just wanted to call that out. And then lastly, industrial. We're not a big industrial town. We knew that, so our emissions are quite small here. But the main one there is natural gas or stationary energy. So moving on, where do we as a local government fit into this pie? These are emissions just by the things that we control. So for the city, non-technical terms here. So the majority of our emissions are electricity, and then our landfill methane, our natural gas, and our fleet are kind of the big ones. Again, here with water and wastewater, the electricity used to power those are in the electricity sector. And our community scale, our local government emissions are about 4% of our community scale, just to give you an idea of our slice of the pie. For our net government operations, we do have a clean energy purchase power agreement, which reduces our emissions by about 92%. So that is really great. Pretty much any account that is through Duke is receiving clean energy. And then just to give you an idea of our top electric users, we have our wastewater plant, our water plant, our 7-mile well field, street lights, and our police station. So you can kind of imagine each of those facilities as part of the pie. And then for natural gas, again, water, police department, wastewater, the aquatic center, and the fire station. So a lot of our essential services running 365, 24 hours a day. I also want to share some of the other really cool information we got from Power Clean Future Ohio. This was a huge value add in going with their technical assistance program. One, we get a comparison to other communities. So we look at our emissions per capita. We're doing really well. If we exclude MU, we're in first, but that might be a little deceitful. So we're in fourth if we include Miami. But overall, our community is a very sustainable one, and we are leaders across the state. We can also look at this through residential only. So when we look at just our residential emissions, we're right behind Athens. We can continue that friendly competition. And then for government operations, we fall a little bit on the middle of or lower on the pack, but that's because not every government operates a wastewater treatment plant. There's such a variety in services that's offered between government to government that it's harder to compare them in comparison by metric tons per capita. Some other cool stuff PCFO gave us is a solar assessment. They were able to see how many distributed energy systems are in our community. So you can kind of see the slow climb there, which is really exciting, separated between residential and cumulative. This is really powerful information that we didn't have before. And they also provide us baseline forecast. So if we do nothing for our emissions and our population growth rate stays the same, we're looking at a gradual increase of our emissions by 2035. So now, what we all care about, right? Like, how are we doing against our goals? So a few disclaimers. Our emissions will fluctuate year to year due to weather, changes in like emissions calculators, right? So we may see our emissions go up or down based on factors outside of our control. COVID, right? We had a population dip in 2020 and 2021, things like that. Some of our data sources have changed. We've gotten more accurate data this time around, which is really great. So I'm hesitant to say we maybe lowered emissions where maybe we just got better data. And then also we utilized a different software between our inventory. So overall, we're looking at general trends, not explicit like we've reduced by X%, if that makes sense. So for our community-wide gross emissions, this stayed relatively the same in the where our emissions are coming from. Between 2019 and now, energy and transportation are our largest emission sources, but we now have better transportation data and better energy data, so those proportions have shifted a little bit. We're using less national averages. We're able to capture more of like the pickup and drop-offs and things like that. And for our government operations, so things we are explicitly in control of, we are right on track to reach our 2030 emissions reduction goal. So this is largely due to the flare at the closed landfill and the swapping out LEDs on our street lights. And then of course some other, weather, maybe we use a little bit less electricity, things like that. And then I always just want to shout out the methane flare at the closed landfill. It is the most boring and effective sustainability program ever. You can see here the huge decrease in emissions. Our landfill does have annual fluctuations. You can see it went up between 2019 and 2021. So 2023 was a low year, but then with the addition of the flare, we were really able to drive our emissions even lower. So with that, we are on our red brick road to zero. We should be very proud of our community. I think of us as we're going from the B+ to the A-, and like that's really hard to do, but we are doing it. So with that, I will answer any questions.
If money were not an issue, how many of those flares on the landfill would be ideal, do you think? Do you have an idea of that?
I almost want to pitch this to Jason, but I would say maybe 2 more. So the struggle with, I shouldn't say the struggle, the flare requires a certain amount of methane to be released from the gas vent to keep the fire going.
Right.
And our landfill, not every pipe in that landfill emits enough methane to keep the flare active. So I know there's been discussions about possibly doing another flare next year, and I would definitely support that for a very cost-effective emissions reduction program.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments?
Well, hey, this is awesome. I mean, this is the kind of data you need to know whether you're making progress towards your goals or not. I wonder if you could go back to the slide about our progress relative to the 2030 goal, because I'm looking at 2 different slope lines, and one is the slope we need to be on, and then the other one is the slope that we're on. So, I mean, 2030 is now 4.5 years away. So, I mean, how do you, I guess I'm just pointing out that we're not on a trend to make that target, are we?
Not at the community-wide scale, no. And to me, I see this as there's not a single person that climate change won't affect. Therefore, there's not a single person that can't be a part of the solution. If we ran our operations 100% carbon neutral, we would reduce our emissions by 4% on the community-wide scale. But if everyone in our community does what they can, and then we as a policy-making entity make some strategic choices too, we can get there. But yes, we are not quite on track on the community-wide scale as we are with the local.
Well, I think that helps me thinking about the proportionality of what's important, I mean, because we're debating how much do we want to emphasize or invest in something like solar or anything else, and we can feel good relative to what we've been in the past, but if you judge yourself against the goal, it feels like a little more rigorous of a task ahead. But.
Okay. Jason?
I would say the biggest thing we can do is getting 5 megawatts on the closed landfill in terms of solar, but also based on how you calculate it, we might not get credit for that. Because, for example, we purchase RECs and we have clean energy, and that's meaningful and good, but that probably gives us more credit than we should. If we were to make our own solar that would not exist otherwise, whether we get credit for it or not, that is it's basically the biggest thing we can do for climate as a city. And so I would push hard for us to do that, and hopefully 2 flares. So yeah, I have the numbers. There are 5 flares that are above 68 metric tons put out a year. I would hope that we could do 3, which I think is possible.
And this is just how we've talked about what can we do, and you know, is it a solar array on top of a building like the senior center? Is it, like, I think that chart gives essentially the scale of the challenge. Like, this is not a rooftop solar problem away from being solved. Like, we have to go big if we want to.
But those
meet the
things
challenge.
will help.
Yeah, they will all add up, but we just need to keep in mind the scale of the challenge.
Yes, with that scale, if we were to add up all the large solar projects we could do on city buildings, and we can't even do them all, it pales in comparison to getting 5 megawatts on the solar on the closed landfill. It is not even remotely close.
And I would mention kudos to Miami for the massive solar field that they're building where Thompson Hall used to be on Western Campus. So I think that's a step in the right direction as well. Okay, thank you, Rena.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay, at this time, we go to public comments. Anyone wishing to address council about items that are not on tonight's agenda, or if they're on the consent agenda, now would be the time for you to comment. If they are on the agenda, just hang on and we'll let you speak when we get to those items. Is there anyone who would like to address council? Okay. Thank you very much. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Next second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items to be removed for discussion? None? All right. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move to resolutions.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Ohio Department of Development for the Energy Efficiency Program for up to $200,000 and a match up to $73,257.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Rena?
Hello again. So, in effort to keep on track with our climate goals, we want to pursue a grant to make some energy efficient improvements across multiple facilities, as well as solar at the senior center. We have been working with Ameresco to conduct the level 2 ASHRAE energy audits. They identified projects for us, and they recommended that these are some of the most advantageous energy efficient projects we can do, and then as well as solar at the senior center is the right size for us.
Okay. Thank you, Rena. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Okay, thank you. Councilors, any questions or comments? I saw it
This
from
is
the-
awesome. I just have a question. Like, do we understand what's going on at the police station? You know, is that with the commissionings to try to figure out what is exactly going on there?
Yes, yeah. So the retro commissioning at the police station is essentially, from my understanding, like a mini study. So through the energy audits, they found that the police station utilizes more natural gas per square foot than other facilities. So it's to kind of take apart the HVAC, test every piece, and ensure that it's working properly, so we're not wasting natural gas.
Which sounds like a cost savings as well as a climate
Yes.
thing. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. We'll move to first reading of ordinances. You can read the first one.
An ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Oxford Codified Ordinances.
Okay, Doug?
Thank you. So the city utilizes the service of Walter H. Drain Company to codify our city ordinances, and this includes ordinances adopted by city council. It also includes changes to the city's traffic and general offense code to comply with state law. And that's what you have before you tonight. You'll see that there are both traffic and general offense code changes that we're recommending that you adopt. This is on for first reading.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Okay, thank you. Councilors, questions? Okay, thank you. Move to number 2.
An ordinance accepting the Planning Commission recommendation to amend 2.71 acres of the official zoning map at 6099 Fairfield Road from two-family residential district to multifamily residential district.
Okay, is there, we have Sam. Would you like to give us a report on this one?
Sure thing. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I've got some slides here for you tonight. This is the first of 3 recommendations from Planning Commission that I'm bringing on behalf of the Planning Commission. And I'm going to do an overview of really these first 2 together because they're interrelated. What you have on this first one from Planning Commission is a recommendation to rezone or a zoning map amendment from R2A to R3 at 6099 Fairfield Road. Many people may refer to this as the former nursing home property on Fairfield Road near the Tri facility. Scott Webb was the applicant on behalf of Terry and Catherine Dudley. It's a large parcel of land that's been sitting for a little while. Folks may be familiar with it already, almost 3 acres in size there, as you can see on the screen. And the building that is intended to be adaptively reused is almost an acre in itself. So it's a very large building. And the goal there is to reuse it. And so, but in order to do that, the request is to rezone it or upzone it, some people might refer to, in order to gain more potential units because of the size of the building, instead of having to modify it significantly. And so that rezoning request is from R2A to R3. This is a land use map, so not a zoning map, but it just kind of gives you a little bit of a paintbrush view of some of the uses around there. You see single family, which is the 1F, and then institutional for the former nursing home. And then you see the senior center nearby, Oxford View Apartments, Taliford Manor. The applicant's goal on behalf of the owner is to make it into senior housing. So they believe it's a complementary use to the surrounding uses. And in order to get the number of units that they would like to have to take advantage of the building and the way the layout is, that there's a higher number of units than what the current zoning would allow. So this map is the future land use map out of the comprehensive plan, which is something that we did not have in the previous comprehensive plan. So it gives a little bit more of a detailed vision for the future that the 2008 plan did not have. It shows the area's transitional suburban neighborhood, which is a fairly broad category. And we believe that the rezoning request was supported by the comprehensive plan, which you'll see in a moment here. You'll see suburban neighborhood around the vicinity. And this is the zoning map. And you can see there's not any other R3 districts in the area, which that was actually a topic that came up at Planning Commission. Is this a spot zone? And that term sometimes does get a bad connotation because if it doesn't match the other colors on the zoning map, which in and of itself is not, it's not wrong. It's not that it's not allowed, but if it is a zone by itself, it needs to be supported by legislative intent from the elected body, which is city council in this case. So, and I'll get into some of that in a little bit about the housing needs in the community that were identified in the housing study in 2020. And this would be what the map would look like if the zoning is changed to R3. This is just some photographs of the property showing the former nursing home building from the outside. And then from within, inside the parking lot of the property. And this is an aerial view. So you can see the kind of courtyard in the middle, and as I'll get into with the plan development and the zoning code, there's a zoning code provision that does not actually allow entrances that are not facing the street. So that was one of the topics that was discussed, one of the waiver requests that was recommended. And then you can see the difference between the two drawings, how there would be changes to add entrances to the building on the outside and also to the interior courtyard. And then there would be a pathway into the courtyard from the outside as well. And you can see what those changes are here. A little bit of a view. These are borrowed from architect Scott Webb from his renderings of what the altered building would look like with the added entrances, because now it's hallways on the interior. And this would be what the change would look like from the outside for a new driveway to have a one-way circle drive from Fairfield Road, which does not currently exist. A little bit more about how the building would be divided up, and landscaping. This is getting into more of the plan development aspects and the changes to the site that would be necessary that were all discussed. Getting back into more kind of the underlying zoning request, which is the ordinance that was read on the agenda for this first case of this project. 34 units would be allowed under the current zoning, and then 42 and potentially more with the plan development for R3. And that is the reason for the rezoning request, because of the number of units that is allowed by the zoning district. And also, the underlying zoning district does not allow the number of units per building either, but only with the plan development. The plan development allows that review to happen for a hearing to determine if there's any potential impacts that the neighborhood believes that are not anticipated that need to be mitigated. And so those were some things that were discussed and gone through in the decision criteria. 44 units are proposed. 37 would be 1 bedroom, and then 7 would be 2 bedroom, and then there would be some supplementary space within the building for shared space, common space, possibly a couple small offices and a space for community gathering, in addition to the individual units. This would be an unstaffed facility. It would be private senior apartments. It would not be a care facility or assisted living of any kind. Comprehensive plan, we just wanted to highlight some of the goals that are in addition to the future land use map. And these are surrounding the topic of housing and housing access, housing affordability. These are all things that were a goal of council even before the comprehensive plan was adopted. Having additional supply of housing, particularly for those in the lower and middle income category of the market. On the zoning map amendment, there are 4 decision criteria that need to be reviewed. And the first one was found not to be applicable, and the other 3 were found to be in conformance, which only 1 is required to support the zoning map amendment. And so that was found by Planning Commission. The plan development, in conversation with the architect and the fact that there's a possibility that with any zoning change that the project may not happen. And we know that because it's so closely tied to, it's a single phase plan development. Sometimes you may recall on former cases where you would have a preliminary plan development and then several months later you may have a final. And between those two, there's more details in the design. In this case, both were presented and reviewed at the same time because there is no second phase. It's a single phase development. And so that's the way it was reviewed. However, because of the potential density, the potential for it to change to something else, the applicant and owner fully believed and agreed to have a connection between the 2 approvals of the plan development being a condition of the rezoning. And if the plan development did not happen, as was proposed for senior housing, that the zoning would revert back to the previous zoning. And so everyone was in agreement, as well as the Planning Commission, as far as the fact that the 2 would be tied together. And even to the point that the applicant and owner are willing to have a deed restriction, a self-restriction that would be an age restriction for senior housing. And they would be having a deed restriction that would be recorded with the deed to confirm that as well. We did go through, as you may recall from many of the cases that come through Planning Commission, some of which are recitations of existing codes, some are special conditions and waivers that are above and beyond what the code allows. And those are in your packet, having to do with the setback and the lot coverage, because this is an existing developed property. And those were, there's actually 11 of those total. And the main one I think that was discussed the most had to do with the connection between the 2 approvals, the zoning map amendment and the plan development being tied together. But I'm not going to read all of those conditions and waivers, but they were all in there. I've got a few highlights of them here, but I'll be happy to answer any questions about those. Mr. Webb's also here tonight too and has some more detailed slides on his own renderings if you'd like to look at those too. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so let's first just talk about the zoning, and then we'll separately talk about the planned unit development. So is there anyone from the public who would like to address the zoning issue that's before us? Okay, thank you. Counselors, any questions or comments? I'm looking at my planning representatives.
I mean, I don't think I think there was strong agreement that the rezoning was supported by the comprehensive plan. And for a variety of reasons that Mr. Perry has already cited, the need for housing and so forth, and we didn't feel it like incompatible with the zoning in the surrounding area. However, we all did appreciate that the upzoning was tied to the specific senior-focused proposal, so that there were a lot of safeguards that we weren't rezoning for something that, if that project weren't to happen, then it could be something else. So the rezoning is tied to them fulfilling the senior-focused development, so which was a nice safeguard.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Yeah.
Can you explain to me how deed restrictions are enforced? So say if there was a violation on, it was no longer senior housing at some point, like what happens?
Normally, there is it's checked in the title search process, so when there is a transaction that's made. In the case where if there's no transaction, it would have to be a proactive enforcement. There's no outside entity. So like the conversations that we've had with our owned properties, where we have asked for those things to be put in place, there would be a third party involved. In this case, there would not be. So it would be the city staff. So if the project was not being used that way, if the property was not being used that way, then the city would have to be the enforcing agency in that.
And what would happen?
There would have to be an investigation, and there would have to be a meeting of the parties to, work it out and discuss how to resolve it.
Okay.
We've not been in. Typically, those are done through homeowners associations, and where there's a third-party agency that has its own governing board. There's not usually a standalone deed restriction, and so when those usually come up, it's if there's a deed restriction that is restricting something in the transaction, but if it's for the purpose of the same owner, then it would have to be there would have to be an investigation into if there's a violation of that.
So is there any established like fines, or would the city possibly sue?
Civil.
Or what would?
It would be a civil proceeding, would be the first step, and then there would be a pursuit of a resolution. So the fines are more reserved for smaller types of violations, kind of one-off violations on things that are that can be easily resolved. But in this case, I don't think it would have to be a cease type of situation.
Are there examples of that happening before in Oxford? Of a deed restriction being violated and then?
Not involving the city, not in the time I've worked for the city, but I'm sure they happen with private enforcement homeowners associations pretty frequently. We just don't know about it because they're not and they're not ones that we have asked for. In this case, the owner has offered it in exchange for getting an approval for something that they would like to do that the zoning code does not specifically allow. And so by having those tied together, then it's something that is agreeable on both parties. So we are essentially having that memorialized through an ordinance on something that is being offered by the owner. So it's not something it wasn't solely our idea.
Other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. You want to now go ahead and read the next ordinance.
An ordinance accepting the Planning Commission recommendation to approve a preliminary and final plan development for senior housing at 6099 Fairfield Road.
Okay. Sam?
All right. I just wanted to quickly skim over some of the waivers and conditions that are more specific to the plan development. Number 3 is about the edges of the parking lot. Number 4 is about the lighting, outdoor lighting. Number 5 has to do with the landscaping. Number 6
What
has to
page
do.
is this on?
This is on page 144.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a big document, so
It is.
it helps to have the page number.
It is on 143 and 144.
Thank you.
Number 7 have to do with the purpose of permitting the 44 multifamily residential housing units and the deed restriction that we've talked about extensively. Number 8 is the issue of the entrances that are not directly facing the street in the zoning code. Number 9 is the front yard coverage because of the new parking spaces that would be along the front, along Fairfield Road. Number 10 is the perimeter setback. All planned developments have a 25-foot perimeter setback required. This is an existing parking lot surrounding an existing building that they want to reutilize. So we felt that granting a waiver for that was appropriate because it's not a new development in a green space. And then the last one being a waiver permitting the lot coverage, which already exceeds the limit of 40%.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone from the public who would like to address, or would you like to address it? Yeah, come on up. Welcome, Scott.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Happy to be here tonight, and I'm sorry, what?
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Scott Webb.
Thank
I'm
you.
the architect for the project.
I know you, but some people might not.
My 26th year in business in front of this body, just by coincidence. So happy to be here tonight to hopefully deliver City Council a project that it seems you all have been looking for, something both addressing senior housing and affordability. I'll go through these really quickly. I just kind of want to give you a little more about the building and how we're approaching it itself to help you understand the concept of the planned development. So the zoning, I think we all understand where this is and why. But I think it's also important to note the proximity to the senior center and to Taliford Manor. Taliford Manor, we have learned since the Dudleys bought this property, has a 40-person wait list right now. We're looking at hoping to do 44 new units. So, we're not really concerned about demand or the need here. We think that the opportunity is here. It's located in the right place, and by agreeing to the 55 and over restriction on the deed for the residents is really not a problem. That's exactly who our market is. That's exactly what we're looking for. We're not trying to solve the overall affordable housing problem right now and create some kind of a mixed development. We're talking specifically about senior housing, and we feel that the location and the zoning is important for that reason. Here's some just other views of it. This has been around for quite some time. Those of us that have been around have seen it go through lots of names and lots of openings and closings. It's been vacant for quite some time when the Dudleys were able to purchase it. The building is in mixed shape, to put it mildly. The newer portion that you're seeing, the new entrances were built in the last 15 years and are in decent shape. The rest of the building, perhaps not quite as good. But as we like to say, from an environmental perspective, from a planning perspective, and from a cost perspective, the most cost-effective building is the one you don't have to build. So starting with foundations, roofs, the building is fully sprinkled, power is delivered, utilities are on site. That development cost is a huge portion of any sort of development. Compared to a ground-up development, we're way ahead of the game. Therefore, we feel it's a perfect opportunity to try to keep some pricing down in order to do this. The building, as you can see, we have some failing soffits. It wasn't built great the first time. There's not a lot of trim. We're or rakes up there. There's some water problems in the building, kind of as you see as we look around to some of the older portions. The courtyard itself, when this operated as a senior housing, courtyard is a closed loop. They don't want anybody getting out, so to speak. That doesn't necessarily lend itself well for what we're trying to do. So one of the first things we'll talk about is how we're going to try to open up this courtyard and create something else that goes on there. So the building right now, as Sam alluded to, is a center corridor throughout the entire building with basically 4 units, or units on either side flanking the corridor. Our idea, if you look at the little diagram up on the top right, we have 4 units up there without full bathrooms or kitchens and a center hall corridor. We're going to combine each 2 units into a 1-bedroom unit, abandon the corridor, and push the entrances out to the face of the building like you see down at the bottom. So like Taliford Manor, each resident, each apartment has a private entrance to the exterior, egress windows for the rear for safety, and again, the building is fully sprinkled. So there's a big building, and so when we start looking at how we can use this concept of how we're going to recombine these rooms, reuse our plumbing and location, we come up with a plan that looks a little like this. One of the problems, if you can imagine spatially, it's hard to develop areas kind of in the knuckle or in the turn. You know, when we are talking about private residences, we need perimeter for an entrance, and we need perimeter for egress windows. Whenever we have corners of the building, we don't get perimeter. And we also have the problem to solve of how to get into this courtyard. So the areas in yellow are areas that we're talking about kind of surgically cutting through the building, leaving the roofs in place in order to allow the sprinklers to continue to operate as one entire system, but allowing access then to parking. From the parking, you know, if you were a resident in the back end of the courtyard, so to speak, where would you park and how would you get there? So, you know, the parking to the left as we're looking at it, the south side, by cutting through there, you know, you have a sidewalk that can take you straight into the courtyard. So some of our entrances face the courtyard, some of them face the parking lot, and then as Sam pointed out, some of them will ultimately face Fairfield Road to try to get as much as we can out of the project here. All that being said, once we've surgically cut through and created more perimeter in order to create the units that we want, we still have this big area in blue here that is just not very adaptable. It has really no perimeter. That's that big corner entrance, the big round entrance that you might be familiar with from driving by. So the intention right now is to sort of kind of use that for support space from the most mundane parts of it, from storage, a leasing office, some things like that. We also thought this would be a nice opportunity to create a community room. Think of like a clubhouse in a condo development solely for the use of the residents themselves, but these are very small units. We're talking about people that are downsizing in a pretty significant way. So having the ability to still have 10 people over or have the family come or whatever was important. We talked about having the opportunities too for having some flex office space in this common area. Maybe an estate attorney can come 1 day a week, or an accountant, or just a lot of these people potentially might have mobility issues. It might be easy to bring some services to them and provide a little flex space for things like that. Even a hairdresser, for example, could come in 1 day a week and do something in some of this common space. So we're really trying to create a sense of community, try to use as much of the building as possible, and keep as much of it as possible. So even though this blue area represents a fair amount of square footage that we can't directly turn into a residential income, so to speak, we feel that it gives us the opportunity to create some amenities for the residents that they might be giving up when they're looking at downsizing to this degree. This kind of gives you an overview that Sam sort of alluded to. I've left all the current roofs in white that we intend to save. The little shingled portions that you're looking at kind of represent these porch additions that we're going to be sprinkling around. Each one of those represents an entrance to the building. So the little view down there on the bottom right kind of shows the view from that south parking lot looking through the connection in toward the courtyard. This kind of gives you an idea how these little new covered entrances provide a little porch, a separate identity, rather than have the exact same porch every 11 feet as we go down the building. You know, I've tried to create some variety, combine a couple, separate them, use some different roofs to try to create a little bit of individuality for the units themselves and ultimately for the residents. We still, as you can imagine, with our parking as far away as it is, you look at the distance from the parking to some of those units in the center of the corridor, we thought it might be important, rather than leave everything sort of flipped into the courtyard, to take one group of them, the ones that we're looking at on Fairfield Road, flip the entrances to the outside, have right in front of your unit parking. Those would be the most accessible of all the units, likely the first ones to be rented, closest to the parking and things like that. So that was the idea. And if you recall from some of the pictures or from driving in here this evening, you know that Fairfield Road elevation is not elegant at this point. So you know, having the opportunity to clean that up and break it up with some new entrances. Some people have asked, there's a bunch of different brick out there. You may or may not have noticed. This will likely end up being painted at some point to try to tie the entire thing together. And you know, the siding replaced and things that were sort of failing, kind of going away. This view down there at the bottom is kind of from that south parking lot, showing you how we'd have a variety of units and a variety of entrances around the parking lot for the individuals. And that's kind of the overview that I have to present. A couple of things I wanted to say with regard to the zoning map amendment. As Sam and Zach pointed out, this is simply about density. You know, this is how big this building is. If we were limited to 30 units in this building, it wouldn't be a economically feasible project, you know, to take on something this large. So we're trying to increase the zoning in order to increase the density to essentially use all the building. All that being said, we are in a bit of a catch in that sometimes our zoning code is based on occupants and sometimes it's based on units. Our districts are currently based on units. So even though we're providing 37 single bedroom units and 7 doubles, we're actually 2 units over what even the new zoning would allow. But that being said, you know, we could have 42 4-bedroom units in theory on this particular lot rather than 44 or 37 and 7 1s and 2s. So that's kind of a waiver, a little bit of a gray area that we're asking for there. As we pointed out in Planning Commission, as we are making our way through and starting marketing studies and starting to market the project, the unit count may ultimately go down if we find there is a larger market for a 2-bedroom unit, a couple of 1s, make it combined into a 2. So for now, what we're asking for is your consideration of that number as the maximum that we can get to. So we would appreciate your consideration on that. As staff pointed out, we're happy with the conditions. We're happy with the way that staff, Planning Commission, everyone has worked with us here to try to bring something that we think is going to be a benefit to the community. And we appreciate your support. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Okay. Counselors, do you have questions?
Can I ask, it's such tiny little print. So I was just wondering, are there any steps in these apartments?
Now, one of the big advantages of converting the nursing home is that everything is entirely on one level. And so even on what would be the east side, where there are lots of steps, you know, the new entry, the covered entry, the big round portion up there, even on that face, there are crisscrossing ramps so that you can get to any apartment from any parking lot, no steps on the property. Not that there are no steps, but there's always a no-step path to every place.
And then it looks like there's laundry available in every apartment.
Yes.
And then how big are the doorways? I couldn't tell.
I mean, this is sort of designed kind of as an aging in place sort of thing. So, I mean, we're intending to accommodate, you know, mobility issues, walkers, things like that in the design. The restrooms inside the units are laid out to ADA standards for clearance around fixtures and things like that.
So wheelchairs would fit in there.
This is designed for aging in place.
What is it? What is the number? How many inches
How many
for the
inches?
doorways?
36 would be the minimum for sure.
And then I saw in there working with Age Friendly. Have they reviewed this plan already? Age Friendly Oxford?
No, I mean, I've just been connected to Ann and that group for a long time. I know we've
Okay.
been looking for things like this. I've spoken to the group a few times, so, you know, I feel like this is certainly in line with that and in line with the goal statement.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? I do, do you have
Well,
one?
you want to go first, or?
Well, I'll let you go
Okay.
because mayor generally goes last.
Okay, so, you know, I was just expressed with the planning commission, I think was, you know, excited by the potential of this redevelopment, particularly as it hit this demographic, like, that's really, it's just a product that I think we felt really suited our plans, and the adaptive reuse of a building that sat vacant was really awesome, and I think that we didn't really, staff had really gone through with a fine-tooth comb to work out a lot of those details. I just had some questions, because there were some things that didn't rise to the level of conditions, but we raised them as kind of issues to think about. I don't know if there's been subsequent thought. One was trying to point in the direction of some kind of pedestrian connectivity to the senior center, because it's kitty corner to you guys. And I'm not sure if you've looked out there at the grade and at least on your portion of the site, what that would take. The other thing I had just mentioned, which is my bugaboo, is trying the vehicular stops so we don't have vehicular overhang on the sidewalks. So I guess, have you thought about those two things yet any further?
Yeah, only in that we agreed to them. I mean, you know,
Okay.
we understand, you know, it happens all over town when pickup trucks back in and the entire bed is across the sidewalk. You know, that's not what we're looking for there. So the idea of putting some curb stops in to prevent that is fine. I think the connection to the senior center was brilliant. I'm sorry I didn't think of it myself. Honestly, we're right next door. It seems simple enough to point a sidewalk that direction, so, yes.
And some other things that are not at the level of code stuff, like I'm willing to go with the maximum of 44. I'll just reiterate that I think a lot of people have trouble downscaling from a house to a one-bedroom. And I think that shifting to a two-bedroom, even if people then scale down, might allow you to capture people. It's going to be pretty, so you know, and I do feel like our planned development code kind of has a goal of facilitating a mixture of developed dwelling types. But planning commission didn't feel like it necessitated a condition on the mix, but the
So
one little.
44 is the maximum.
Yeah, that's the max they can do. You know, I think we
Could be
felt,
less.
yeah, we felt like, I mean, I think some of us felt that it would be nice if there were a greater mix of two-bedroom units, that just to hit a wider swath of the market, but not to the level of condition. The one final part I was thinking about this, I think because it's the nature of the development, planned development doesn't ask about bicycle racks, does it? I'm just thinking, our senior population are big e-bike riders. And I just don't know, in a complex that's this small, I think to think ahead to the residents, some of them may likely have e-bikes, and whether or not there's a place, their units seem pretty small to bring a bike inside. I don't know whether there's an opportunity with your breezeways or something to think about sheltered parking, bike parking. That, again, not as the level of condition, but just trying to help you meet what I think your users are gonna look at. But yeah, all the conditions seem good to us on the planning commission.
Great. So I think this is a really good use. I think it's a really nice plan. You do a good job.
Thank you.
Now, these are not condos to be sold, they are to be rented, is that?
Right.
Okay, because I heard you say a leasing office.
Sorry, what?
You said a leasing office,
Oh,
so I
right.
assumed
Yeah.
that they were being rented. I guess my question is for staff. Since it's going to be a landlord situation, is the landlord in this case up to date on all of their fees for, you know, rental permits and fines being paid and so forth?
Sam, you want to take that one?
Are you referring to this property or?
Well, I'm talking about the landlord owns I don't know how many, but
Okay. No.
Lots of them.
Not in compliance.
they're not in
Not in
compliance.
compliance, no.
Do you have any specifics on how out of compliance they are? Or?
Rental permits, there's there's no rental permits being obtained by this property owner currently. So that's definitely something that we would require with this and hope that they would willingly comply with this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And
And are
on
there
that theme,
fines?
on inspections, I mean, in terms of rental inspections, I know we have unevenness among our property owners, whether they permit on-site inspections or not.
It's over 90% now. And actually in the past couple of years, the number has really, that are not consenting to inspections is really small. There's very few search warrants that we've obtained, administrative search warrants, so our program is pretty, it's not 100%, but it's very close.
So my view on that is that I would probably oppose this project until the landlord has come into compliance with the law on all of the other properties that he owns. That is an opportunity for him to get into, or they, to get into compliance. And so that's not a question for you, it's just a comment to my colleagues, and I hope that you would support that. When we ask for rental permits, it's not just an idle request, it is a requirement of rental. And most of our landlords do follow that. And so I think once I get at second reading information that all of those have been brought up to date and all current fines that have been levied have been paid, then I will support this enthusiastically.
If I might add, I support that completely. I think this is a no-brainer, a great project, but I have no problem at all making conditional on everything being brought up to compliance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move then to number, what are we, 4?
Yeah. An ordinance accepting the Planning Commission recommendation to amend 2.1 acres of land on the official zoning map located at 5234 Hester Road from single-family medium-density residential restrict to single and two-family residential restrict.
Okay. Sam, lead us on this one.
All right. This is the recommendation from the May meeting, so the prior month from Planning Commission. This was the cottage community property. You all may remember the community development professionals project did not work out, and so it was put back out for another RFP, and you've heard the discussions with Empower Me Living, and so the city actually offered to request rezoning for that project to increase the potential number of units from 13 up to 26. Empower Me is actually wanting to do somewhere around the vicinity of 16, so not the full amount that would be allowed by the R2A zoning district. The current zoning district is R1B, so the slide you see there on the screen of the lighter yellow and then would change to the darker R2A. This would be also a planned development, so that would further refine how the layout would be. Tonight, you're just looking at the rezoning. The Planning Commission was not looking at a development application or a site plan or anything. It was purely just the density issue. Comprehensive plan shows suburban neighborhood and employment corridor in the area, so there's no reference to any vision for any change there. It is kind of on that edge between that highway context and that suburban kind of infill that's happened over the past few decades. And as you know, that those of you that have been in Oxford for a while, that highway corridor has been gradually being improved. The infrastructure, the businesses have been getting filled in. Some of the housing has been changing as well. And so this is another one where accomplishing a housing goal through zoning. And as our research has shown, and Assistant City Manager Jessica Green has talked about at length many times, is zoning is really one of the prime obstacles that stands in the way of housing, affordability and access. It's not the only one, but it's one that cities and townships and counties can have some influence over, and it doesn't cost a whole lot to do. And so this would be one. where that could happen. And so just a little bit of a history there. Those buildings have been cleared from the property. It's been vacant for some time. This was the prior development that was approved, that we don't have a new development proposal or anything. So we're just looking at the history here. And, but we're looking forward to reviewing Empower Me's proposal. Some of you may remember that, and it was just a conceptual proposal that was vetted by Housing Advisory Commission and a committee, and then brought forward, and we're now working on the details of what that development agreement and contract would look like. And as we did for the previous case, there's 4 decision criteria. Planning Commission and staff found back at the May meeting that 2 of the 4 were appropriate and found to be in alignment with the request that was made by staff. Only 1 is required. That first one is typically an X because usually it's just looking at seeing whether there's a map error of some kind, and this code has not been updated since then. So, but the other 3 we usually spend a lot of time researching on to make sure that comprehensive plan, as we've talked about, assisting with housing access, and there hasn't really been any changes in the area conditions since the comprehensive plan. It's only been a couple years, so really the same situation there. And legitimately need for land area, we've definitely talked about in a previous case tonight as well. The other R2A zones are all pretty much built out, and this would be one in a key location where the city actually owns the land, can have some say over what happens. So this would be help with the supply of R2A land. Comprehensive plan, same that had been mentioned in previous case, with leveraging land assets for improving housing supply, boosting inventory. And then this is an excerpt out of the housing needs assessment that's starting to get a little dated now. We probably should update that, but it's been over 5 years since we did that study, but the needs are still there, so especially in the lower rent and purchase range. At the time, I think it was under 200,000 for purchase and under 1,000 for rent. Those numbers are going to have to be updated, but it gives you an idea of the most critical need. 13 units possible with the current zoning, and then 26 would be possible with the R2A, only with planned development. The developer that the city is looking to partner with officially, that you have already approved, is looking at a number of 16. And you can see the areas that are zoned R2A currently around the community that are mostly built out, except for some ones down by South Point that do not have sanitary sewer access at the moment. And then there's a reference to Empower Me Living. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this one? As always, we give you 5 minutes. Give us your name and where you live, and we're glad to have you here. Hi, Ann.
Hi. Ann Fuhr, I live on Dana Drive in Southern Knolls. That's one of the R2A areas. I think this is a great idea. Sam's really made the argument. I am on the board of Oxford Area Solutions for Housing, and we know that in order to increase the stock of affordable housing in the community, there's going to need to be some rezoning that increases density to make affordable housing developments possible. Speaking as a homeowner in the community, living in an R2A area, it's a very comfortable neighborhood to live in, and I think the multifamily units are integrated. They're separated but also integrated into the community, and I think it works well in Southern Knolls. I also want to congratulate the Housing Advisory Commission and the work of council members on that, and Assistant City Manager Green in really sticking with the comprehensive plan, looking at those needs, seeing the need for rezoning in order to increase density as essential to increasing affordable housing stock in the community. And I know there's a big hurdle because I'm sure there are many other members of the community who really enjoy the single-family home neighborhoods and suburbs and are perhaps fearful or uncomfortable with the notion of increased density of housing in new development. And I understand that those kinds of issues need to be addressed as we go along. And that's part of what OSHA is about, is giving voice to the importance of this in our community to make it a diverse community and also to meet the needs of people who work in Oxford but can't afford to live in Oxford because there isn't affordable rental housing to accommodate enough of those people. So I very much endorse not only the rezoning, but also the project that the Housing Advisory Commission decided to support. So I have faith that you'll vote to support this on second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to address this proposal? Okay, thank you very much. Councilors?
I wanted to just address, there was some discussion at the Planning Commission. I think what's always tricky is when you're zoning a single parcel, people raise, oh, this is spot zoning, this, Mr. Perry was talking about that. And I think whenever zoning is done in isolation, you kind of have to pay attention to it. But the thing is not about the geographical specificity, it's about what are the goals that drive the rezoning. And I think Mr. Perry articulated our comprehensive plan and all the reasons why our comprehensive plan supports zoning like this in this location. The fact that not more of that area is zoned R2A is probably a feature of we've just been very conservative with our zoning and kind of suburban. But if we want the kind of housing, and if we think about that, Southern Knolls or Verica Farms, really high quality developments that are highly desirable. Yes, they're more dense, they just make more efficient use of the space. So there was really, you know, some people had qualms about it by spot zoning, but that was not the feeling of the Planning Commission. I did want to just point out, I did want to appreciate that some neighbors from Hester Road came out, and I think this was the zoning, so I don't think this is exactly the right time, but they were pointing out that there are already some kind of pedestrian safety issues at the mouth of Hester and College Corner Pike. We've talked, you know, for a while about trying to improve some of those intersections. The College Corner Pike is not safe to get across really in many places. And so I don't think that that's, you know, it's not a condition of the rezoning, but when we get to the development, that I hope that's something that the city can partner with on, so that we're going to bring 26 new units in this, potentially people in neurodivergence or whoever they are, that we address some of the safety issues at those intersections, because they're just, you know, we're behind on College Corner Pike in terms of trying to improve the pedestrian crossings. But so I just wanted to, I appreciate the Radliskis came out and kind of, you know, it was their daughter, I don't know how many years ago, came out, hey, can we have a flashing beacon at Westgate? And we're not there yet. She was probably a high school sophomore when she asked, and now she's a college junior. But anyway, something I hope we make note of so that we put on the list of things, especially as the density increases in this area.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's read the next one, please.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3783, supplemental budget ordinance number 4, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025.
Okay, and we have Heidi here to lead us through this one.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I have brought before you tonight a supplemental ordinance asking for a change in revenue and expense for two funds. The first is for the general fund. $16,000 is needed to cover the grant match for Ohio BWC for the mobile robot that was passed by resolution at the last meeting. Our year-to-date interest has well exceeded the 6-month collection expected. Therefore, it well supports the $16,000 match that we would need. The second is $90,000 to allow appropriation to the Housing Trust Fund for the Interact for Health grant for the eviction diversion program, of which $50,000 is set aside for a full-time housing stability staff person through TOPS, and $20,000 for a housing legal fund in which TOPS will manage. and the remaining $20,000 is earmarked for a home communications program.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Okay, counselors? Okay, we're good. Let's go on to second reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of perpetual easements on parcels numbers identified as 10SH1 and 10SH2 or around Gardenia Drive from the Laura C. Osborne Trust for the Oxford Area Trails Multimodal Transportation Project Phase 5.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And are you going to take it, Doug?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so as Heather said, this ordinance is on for second reading, and this will authorize the purchase of the easements, 2 parcels for Phase 5 of the Oaks Trail, and we're recommending adoption of this ordinance this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Okay, thank you. Counselors, any questions or comments?
Is this the last piece of the puzzle, other than moving ahead towards bidding this project out? Is
Well,
that the next?
we need to bring forward the ordinance to purchase parcels from EVR Trust, and so we're working on that. The parcels needed to be surveyed, identified, and the parcel description. So I think we'll have that on the agenda for a first reading at our next meeting.
But we're, a lot of loose ends being tied up.
Yes.
Okay, this is a lot of work to get to this
It
point.
is. When do you anticipate that we will begin work on the trail?
Well, I've signed the contract. I might defer to Mike on that.
We'll start late summer.
Late summer, okay. And is it probably going to start over by the high school with going over the railroad track, or?
We're, to be determined, we're having a pre-construction meeting next month.
Okay,
The long lead time items are being ordered, the fabricated steel and bridges, but there's complications with tree removal and the Indiana bat. But we will get a schedule and let council know when we know.
okay. Thank you, Mike. Any other comments or questions? Are you ready to vote? Please call the roll.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mayor Snavely?
Yes. This ordinance is adopted, and we will move now to announcements and communications, and I'll begin with City Manager Doug Elliott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a couple of items. First thing is, as you know, the governor signed the budget, 2-year budget, last night, and it included 60 line item vetoes of particular interest to the municipalities and school districts. A couple of these vetoes. One, he vetoed the use of eminent domain for recreational trails, so that use still exists. He vetoed the giving of the county budget commissions authority to reduce voter-approved levies. That never seemed right to me, so we were happy to see that that veto came about. There was one dealing with school districts and their carryover balance, if you'll remember, and the final version passed by the House and the Senate basically was going to put a cap on school districts, limiting them to 40% carryover. That item was eliminated too, so that was good news. He vetoed the elimination of replacement property tax levies. Not that we have a lot of property tax levies or would go for a replacement levy, but it's good news if we were to. One thing that I follow closely is the excise tax on adult use of marijuana. As you know, the citizen-initiated statute included 10% excise tax, which the state is collecting. And the budget adopted by the House and the Senate and signed by the governor basically kept in the 35% of that 10% that we get. Unfortunately, there was no appropriation included, so the state is going to sit on that money until they provide an appropriation so that the host communities can benefit from that excise tax. So a lot going on in the budget. And of course, I'm sure you all realize that even though the governor spoke against the flat tax, he made a mention that, you know, dealing with industrial prospects, no one's complained about our income tax. You know, we have basically two brackets, one at, I think, 2.75%, and the other at 3.5% for incomes over 100,000. So we now have a flat tax. He signed that of 2.75% for all Ohioans. You know, the only problem with that is that it's basically a handout to the millionaires and billionaires. This is from Policy Matters Ohio. For the top 1% of Ohioans with an average income of 1.8 million, these Ohioans will receive close to 40% of the benefit of moving to a flat tax and an average tax cut of over $6,500. So this doesn't have anything to do with fairness. It has to do with giving a tax break to the wealthy at the expense of everyday Ohioans. You know, and I shared this with staff. I mean, this was back in 2010. We had 9 tax brackets. We had a very progressive income tax. And over the 15 years, they went down finally to 2, and now we're down to 1. You know, it's not progressive. I mean, you know, they talk about the cutting these tax cuts as delivering new revenue or economic activity. None of that has occurred. So, you know, as Ohioans are struggling to get by, the state's basically skipping out. I mean, you know, as you know, I suggested that a property tax circuit breaker funded by the state for homeowners and renters within a certain income should be instituted, implemented, and paid for by the state. Well, they're not going to have money to do anything like that. So anyway, I'm just a little disappointed in our state legislature and the governor on that one. One last thing that I want to share with you is that, and I believe I sent this out to City Council, but I want to share it with the public. So the Butler County Board of Commissioners determined last year to evaluate the current governance of the Butler County Emergency Management Agency, our EMA, and the operation of the county's emergency management program. The commissioners hired a consultant to engage the cities and counties and villages, the counties, cities, villages, and townships in this planning and public engagement process. So the EMA currently is funded by a per capita fee charged to the various Butler County communities. And the fee was raised from 39 cents, which was in place since 2010, to 55 cents in 2025 and 60 cents in 2027. So they wanted to do a survey and see how the various municipalities felt about how this operation is run. And we met, the police chief, fire chief, and myself, with the consultant. As you probably know, the Butler County Sheriff seeks to dissolve the current operation and its governance, which consists of representatives of cities, villages, townships, and a county rep. And he wants to assume control and responsibility for the operation and its program. So we expressed our satisfaction with the current operation, the current governance, and the programs, and we shared our concern for politicizing this operation and its programs by placing it under an elected sheriff. We also questioned how this change would improve the existing program and if it would receive adequate attention under the sheriff. And so we'll see what the other communities have stated and what the county commissioners finally decide to do. But we, for one, would like to see it exist as it currently does. And that's all I have this evening. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Michael?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
JJ?
Nothing.
Heidi? Chief?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Sam?
Just a real quick update on the restroom project. Unfortunately, we did not get any bids at the June 18th opening, but we did have interested contractors for the project. So we're working to rebid later this month or next month, early the following, and make the project a little bit more attractive. So hopefully we'll still get something started later this year.
Okay. Thank you very much. Chad?
Just quickly, Thursday, July 3rd, we will have the Freedom Festival at the Oxford Community Park, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Hope everyone can join us. I hope our advertising efforts have been successful as we've been pushing it out there. And it was no small feat to get everything together. And as a community member, I've attended numerous times, but this is obviously my first time part of the planning process. And I've been very impressed with the professionalism and how everyone has jumped in to help. So big thank you to police and fire and service department for helping me figure out the logistics. And it looks like we have a good forecast and hope we'll have a great night.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it. Heather?
Nothing, thank you.
Chris?
To follow up on Councilor Ragu's comments about how to enforce the 55 and over condition if the project were to go forward, Sam was exactly correct. There would be some effort to avoid litigation because that's cost effective. But ultimately, if there were a need to go to, for enforcement, it would need to go and get injunctive relief from the court.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Okay.
Nothing.
Happy early Independence Day, and one that I think feels a little bit more heavy than most. There's so many examples of so many people trying to protect our democracy and so many people trying to destroy it. And then one of the things with our state house, with their proposal for the bill, was it House Bill 370 for the, what do they call it? Ohio Prenatal Equal Protection Act. We all know that we voted into our Constitution reproductive access and health care protection. And so the primary co-sponsors, Levi Dean, Jonathan Newman, both men. And then co-sponsors, we have some of our favorites from around the county, Jennifer Gross, Thomas Hall, Diane Mullins, who are co-sponsors. This will essentially, if we're understanding it right, ban abortion. It could also ban IVF too, and also possibly ban contraception. And so these are things that whenever we see, it's a complete violation of our democracy, which is crazy that they're even still messing with this. But if we look at the protections around the country, whenever this hasn't been enacted, if we look at Texas, what happens is that women die. Women die, women who are trying to have children, who miscarry, who don't have access to DNC, which is where they have to take the tissue out so they don't bleed to death. It's illegal. So I would encourage you to call these people who are obviously ignorant about what is actually happening medically. Jennifer Gross, Thomas Hall, Diane Mullins, complete violation of democracy. So happy Independence Day as we call them and tell them to move on.
Okay, thank you very much. Jason?
Yeah, it seems like the best for our country and the best for our state is under attack at all levels. And all I can say is stay strong and keep fighting the good fight because we need it.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just reflecting a little bit. It was wonderful to have Arena. You know, once upon a time, climate was not on the municipal agenda in Oxford. It really has been. It's been a priority for us. It's good to have the data, but the data are a little, there's where the progress we're making. I think as a municipality with our own operations is really good, but as a community, we've set some goals, which were ambitious, but ambition is what it's going to take to avert climate catastrophe. And I think that, all of us who read our social media feeds or the newspaper, the signs are all around us that climate change is accelerating, and it's going to be a tough go. That's going to come back to us in extreme weather and heat and all the stuff, a future we would like to not have. We felt relatively good because, hey, the federal government passed this Inflation Reduction Act. There are all these things that are going to help us along in that. But Oxford is back to where we've always been on this, which is needing to go it alone. Gosh darn it. With very little backup or opposition from Washington, D.C. and Columbus. But that's a position we've long been in, and we're going to have to go with that. And so I hope that as we move forward with our budget, and we think about the revision of our zoning code, we have to start bending the curve downward locally, because people are going to look to us to try to do what the federal government or Columbus is unwilling to do. So it may require some reallocation of resources to help us accomplish like how do we get those 5 megawatts? You know, I fear going off council, the city will not be 1 solar panel greater than when I came on. We have to step up our game. We have to step up our game if we
Okay.
want to meet our goals.
Thank you, David. First of all, I want to remind the public that in November, there will be an election for city council. And so I encourage people to pay attention as candidacies are announced. We have Alex and Amber, who's unable to be here tonight, but both of whom are seeking reelection. I want to recognize Jim Vench, who's here. Thank you, Jim. I think it's important, and so a message to the other candidates, I think it's important for you to be here and to understand what's going on, and not just wait until you are hopefully elected and then show up completely ignorant of everything that's going on. So I give you a lot of credit, Jim, for being here, and I thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to comment on is the 4th of July. I really want to, first of all, thank Chad. He did a wonderful job organizing what was laid in his lap for the parade. To say it was a bust is probably an understatement. I think the 25 people who were there and saw it probably enjoyed it. And that's due to the good organization. I think time has come, and I'm looking at my other counselors, for us not to automatically go along with the car show in order to have our parade. And what happened? Well, the car show decided to end an hour early. And so all the cars that might have been in the parade all left, and the crowd that was there for the car show all left. I think maybe the most common comment I heard from anybody all over town was, why in the world is it being held a week before the 4th of July? So I'm notifying staff in advance that I would like it to be close to, if not on, the day of our fireworks in the future. There's a lot of ways that can be done. There's a lot of places it can happen. But I trust Chad to take that on as a challenge, and I hope that we will do a better job next year. In the meantime, we have the fireworks coming up. I hope everyone has an opportunity to take part. It's a wonderful community event. We have our place staked out already. We know where we're going to be, and I hope that everybody will get out and enjoy it. Ride your bike, drive your car. There's parking available, and the fireworks are sure to be great. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.